Don't need to lie down, go for a sleep or anything?
No.
No? You okay? Right,
No.
you sure?
That'll be after this.
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads? When we're going, we don't need roads. Snakes. What happened with snakes?
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Batman. I am the Father.
I read that Damien Chazelle's new film, is it Babylon, is going to be 3 hours 9 minutes or something. So I was like, how long until we start getting the articles about how to time your toilet breaks?
Well, there is a website or an app that you can
No, there
use.
isn't.
There is. Seriously, there is.
Oh,
I have read about it, and it tells you the best times to go and have a quick wee during
that's
long films.
hilarious. That is
I know.
absolutely hilarious. It's funny because I remember this all kicked off with The Irishman, which I didn't really understand anyway because it was on Netflix. So if you really needed to pee, you could just pause it.
Exactly.
But it's become this thing of like, oh my god, a 3-hour-long movie. You know, here's how to time your toilet breaks. But I think, I mean, from what I've seen from that trailer for Babylon, it certainly looks excellent. It's very, you know, like sort of Gilded Age kind of, you know, the smoky eyes, the big curls, and the sort of flapper dresses. It all looks really cool.
Yeah, I mean, we need big releases. That's the thing. We need big films.
Do you know the thing?
There's not a lot of them going about. Well, having said that, I mean, obviously Black Adam was out 3 weeks ago, and now Wakanda Forever's out now, so we've got big films. But
yeah, but I don't think people are going to see them. Like, I don't think Black Adam performed that well, if I'm right.
Well, it depends where you actually look. If you look at some of the stats, like it's the biggest opening of The Rock's career and things like that. So
right,
it's difficult to gauge. I think it was a success. It was definitely a success. I don't know what they were talking about, sort of opening weekends and things like that, rather than long term. You can't really tell until maybe about a month in with a lot of these films how it does its repeat business and how much it drops in the second and third week. Because apparently, normally films drop about 40 or 50% in the first week.
Unless you're Top Gun Maverick, of course, in which case you're still going. Well, see, I wonder then, because I noticed this with See How They Run, and I think The Wonder is doing the same thing as well, and certainly All Quiet on the Western Front. It was an extremely limited cinema release. Now, I mean, like, you know, you had to be available at like 9:30 on a Tuesday morning in London or something like that. And that ran for 2 weeks and then straight to Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. And I'm wondering, is this going to be the model now? Like, you have it for 2 weeks and then it's a streaming, because they seem to think that's where the drop-off will be.
Not with the Netflix ones. They are releasing so that they get round the rules of eligibility for films for BAFTAs and Oscars and stuff like that. Oscars state that a film has to be in a cinema for 7 days within the sort of the period that is for 2022 films. It has to be in the cinema for a week. I think it's like before the end of December or something like that.
Right.
And BAFTA's something similar. I think it's just purely for awards. And it gives it that wee bit of extra publicity as well, outside of people who would normally watch Netflix. It's actually in the cinemas for a couple of weeks. So film reviewers will review it rather than maybe not if it's just gone on to Netflix. But I think with the likes of See How They Run and things like that, I think they were just cutting the losses on them because they weren't doing that well.
That's a shame. I really enjoyed it. It was like proper. I mean, it wasn't particularly cerebral or anything, but it was just really good fun. It was like a proper, you know, it had all the sort of like, you know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink to all the Agatha Christie tropes and stuff like that. And it was obviously trying to get you involved with the actual, you know, the mousetrap, the kind of monologue at the end. I just thought this was, I thought it was just really lighthearted and really good fun. And it's a shame that I do feel like I almost, you know, sometimes I ponder like where cinema's going, because you do have so many like blockbuster releases, and then films like that, which I would say they're not little indie films. You know, there's a big cast there. You know, that it will have been expensive to make and whatever, and it just seems a strange one that because it's maybe not a superhero movie or like a really gritty like war film, like, you know, Western Front or something like that they're just sort of disappearing, and it's a shame because it was a really good quality film.
Yeah, but on the other side of that, they're obviously using the likes of these films to increase their user base on the likes of Disney, because people who do like movies but don't necessarily like going to the cinema anymore will see these type of films and go, oh, quite like to see that. That's quite good, you know. And it's good content for these platforms, rather than just blockbuster films transferring over onto
and
services. It's something a wee bit different. And like I say, I couldn't quite understand why it got such a limited release and so few screens, given the number of people who were in the film and all that. You know, it just didn't make particular sense. But if people are not going to see it, I think a lot of it's got to do with, let's see, cinemas during the day. They are reliant on an older audience.
Yeah.
And there's only so many people who want to go and see, you know, Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam. They want to see these type of films, but these people are not going back to the cinemas. And that's borne out by the fact that the likes of Cineworld used to be open, I think it was like 10 o'clock in the morning it would open. And it would show films, obviously, all day. Now it's 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon before it actually opens, because they're not getting the people through the doors in order to actually make any money. So it's cheaper for them to not open as early. I mean, the nearest Cineworld to me, the one at Parkhead, obviously nearest to my work. I used to be able to go there. I could finish at lunchtime and go and catch a couple of films and all that. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon before they actually start showing films a lot of the time. Not at the weekends, but during the week, it's 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You just can't see anything before then, because people are not going. They're just not comfortable.
I'm honestly shocked at that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I obviously haven't been to cinema in a wee while. So the 2 films that I went to see, obviously, the other weekends, Banshees of Inisherin, completely full. And I mean, like, full. And then Barbarian, there was maybe about 10 people in a smaller hall. So that wasn't mobbed. But I was surprised that, again, because I'm surprised that Banshees of Inisherin, I would have thought it'd been the other way around, put it that way. You know, Barbarian, you're advertised as your sort of big horror type. I was surprised at the numbers. However, my viewing experience at the Banshees of Inisherin was that the girl too along from me decided to literally take phone calls and text during it because she, in inverted commas, didn't understand it and there was nothing going on anyway.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Aye, well, you get that an awful lot, but just leave then. You know?
I know, if you don't like it, just fuck off out the cinema. It's dead simple.
Rather than using it as time to catch up in your social medias, you know, that's just people being arseholes. It happens all the time. It happens everywhere.
Well,
it's just...
I don't know if you saw the thing that's happened. Obviously, it's spoilers if you've not seen Black Adam. There was a critic whose name I can't remember. He's a YouTuber in America, and he filmed his reactions to Black Adam. But he must have had someone sitting like 2 or 3 rows in front of him in the cinema with a phone or whatever, because obviously there's quite an important character, you know, returns in the film. And he had someone like with people literally with lights like focused on him in the cinema and film. Can you imagine if you'd walked into a screening like that?
Yeah, that's a nightmare, because you're just distracted. Because the room's so dark, anybody taking a phone out and looking at it is just a total distraction. It's not on. It's bad manners. It really is. But people do that all the time. You can see it all the time when you go to the movies, and it's horrible. I do wonder if it's because we get used to watching films at home. Because like I've been to the theatre a couple of times, and there was definitely nobody on their phone there, and that was quite a clear divide between like, you know, at the theatre it's definitely seen as a big no-no still, whereas at the cinema I don't know if it feels like a more casual experience or because we are just used to checking our phones while we're watching Netflix, but I've noticed it more and more at the cinema. The phone usage thing but I am like 4,000 years old, so I'm like, can you put your phone away? Yeah, no, you're right, but all that does is lead to conflict and arguments, and you end up not enjoying the film. And a lot of it's down to the cinemas, because a lot of them have cameras actually in the cinemas, and they can look at the crowds, and you can see when you go past their wee desks, you know, when you're checking in, they've got cameras, they've got the screens, and they can see what's going on in these screens. So these cameras are powerful enough that they can pick up somebody lighting up a mobile phone, so they should be right in there. But there's only 1 or 2 people actually working, and they're on minimum wage, so they're not going to take any responsibility upon themselves in order to go in and start an argument with somebody and get kicked out, because that will just lead to somebody getting battered.
100%. So it was an interesting. I think because it's such a, and we'll obviously go and talk about it. It's such an emotional film that you didn't want anything to draw you out of what was happening, because you really had to.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's you want to be engrossed in these films. Well, you want to be engrossed in any film, let's face it. When you're getting pulled out of it in that way, it's different if you're getting pulled out of it by something stupid that's actually happened on screen, or something daft, or a music cue that just goes, oh, for fuck's sake,
Yeah.
But when it's somebody in the audience, and you've got to wonder why they're actually there in the first place, if they're thinking, well, this is a bit boring, I think I'll just go on my phone for a while.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was trying to recall, because we've spoken about this in pods before, about sort of like mismatched marketing, as I would call it, like where the trailer looks like one film when you go and see it, obviously it's something else. I think the trailer for Banshees of Inisherin has been very realistic as to the type of film that it's not sold it as like a buddy comedy or like a Father Ted type of, Irish humor type of thing. So I think the trailers are quite clear. So that's why I was like, well, you knew what you were getting into, sort of thing. Why are you here?
Well, there's a wee bit of that, because a lot of it was from the team that brought you in Bruges.
Yeah, I
So
suppose.
maybe, but even then, that wasn't a happy-go-lucky, buddy comedy film or anything like that. That was a wee bit deeper than it purported to be at first. So, yeah, I don't think marketing's really got much to do with it in this case. But yeah, in a lot of cases, it is right. Yeah, you get a film and it's advertised as being a certain thing. I always remember it was a trailer for a film, and it had, I'm trying to remember, I can't even remember the lead actor's name in it now, but the trailer was a minute and a half long. It was full of action. There was shootouts and all sorts, and then when you saw the film, you went, that took up about 30 seconds of actual screen time in the film. It was a dreadful film.
I hate that when you're like, okay, so you've literally put all the jokes in the trailer or all the action, and the rest of it's just, I mean, kudos to whoever's putting the trailers together. They've obviously had to work hard to find some good bits, but yeah, no, I hate that. I hate when you're like, okay, everything that I've seen that I enjoyed, I literally could have just watched the trailer. That would have been enough.
Yeah, more and more now, the filmmakers are having input to trailers, because they're kind of sick of so many plot points being given away and stuff from like the third act and all that actually in the trailers. But you don't know at the time, but then when you see the film, you say, oh, I saw that bit, or you're sitting waiting for a bit to happen, and then if it doesn't happen till the final fight, you're going, oh, fair enough, yeah, I was told about that before. You still get that an awful lot, especially in, I've seen it in a few things in Netflix, for Netflix trailers and all that. You get the stuff that happens in the final, or you get an image or something. How they like to have, like when you go and view a film, there's an image that comes up when you're scrolling through, and the image is from like a big tense moment at the end where two people are holding guns to each other's head or something like that.
That has happened quite. In fact, the other night, because I watched Boiling Point, and then I was looking for that Athena. I think the image from that is from one of the big tense moments to watch, and I'm sure it is, because actually I remember looking at it going, that's, after I'd watched it going, that's a bit of a giveaway as to, whose side a character might be on or what happens. It's a bit of a strange one when they choose. I get they're obviously trying to draw you in, but spoilers.
I know. It's a bit weird, let's face it.
Yeah, I obviously went to see that lovely Hans Zimmer string quartet as well, which was incredible.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That was really good. And then caught up on some Netflix as well, because I think it was somebody on Twitter I noticed kept mentioning that Athena, and I was like, man, it was one of those nights where I was like, well, Boiling Point is only like 90 minutes. I think the Athena is just over 90 minutes. I was like, I can easily get these two done in one night. And I mean, it was a bit of an intense night of Netflix viewing, but yeah, it's been really good to actually get back to that and just not feel like I need to go to sleep the minute I've spent 5 minutes watching something.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I haven't actually been back at the cinema since, when was the last time? It was just before I had COVID. I had a press screening, and it was for Banshees film and Barbarian as well. I missed the last one, although I was back at work. I thought, no, I better go back to work rather than taking an extra day off. So that's
very valiant of you.
I know. But I actually went to an opera last weekend.
Oh, lovely. What did you go and see?
I went to see Anna Dammer, which is a Spanish opera. It's Scottish Opera were doing it. It's about the murder of a writer in 1920s, 1930s Spain. It was really good.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It was really good, yeah, but somebody was sitting in front of me taking photographs. Believe it or not. I know.
And here was me saying I think people behave better at the theatre.
No, they do, but this was an unusual one. But yeah, but it was really good. It was excellent. It was a very modern opera, so it was first performed about 20 years ago, and
wow,
it's just getting revived and stuff, and it was great. It was really lovely, staging and everything, really kind of dramatic and all that, and it's all really short scenes and everything. So that was really good. And I'm going to see Pride and Prejudice sort of tonight at the King's.
Oh, I've seen this advertised. It looks good fun.
Yeah, but it's just we had a voucher from ATG Theatres because we'd booked stuff during COVID and it had all been cancelled, so they gave us this voucher and it's to be used by, I think it's like the middle of next year or something. So we'd booked a couple of things. So
well, that's great.
It was pretty good. So we're going to that tonight. So that should be quite fun. But I realized, like I said to both you and Simi, I realised I hadn't actually seen Pride and Prejudice, so I had to.
I honestly can't believe this. I just assumed that everyone had seen it because obviously the Colin Firth one is so famous for reasons. But actually, the Matty McFadden, Keira Knightley one did quite well. I seem to think at the cinema as well. I just assumed it was one of these kind of classics that everyone had seen at some point. And I love Alison Steadman, and I love her. And the TV series with Jennifer L, I think she's brilliant in it as well. It's just, I just always assumed that because it's kind of, I feel like it's usually on maybe like ITV4 or BBC4, like fairly often. Yeah. I just kind of thought everyone had seen it.
Yeah, it's one of these ones that's always around, but I've never really watched any sort of Jane Austen stuff. That, in fact, the first Jane Austen thing I saw was Love and Friendship about 4 years ago. And that was one of the sort of lesser ones. That was just a film version, and that was really good. That was the surprise film at the Glasgow Film Festival 2016, 2017, and people walked out just as it started because because they were expecting something else. They were expecting a bigger film or something. I don't know, but they were just it's ridiculous and complaining about it and saying, but it's a surprise film. You don't know what it is, But it was actually pretty good, yeah. But yes, so I watched that on Tuesday night. Basically, I couldn't get the Colin Firth version because it's on BritBox, and I don't have BritBox.
Yeah.
But the Keira Knightley one, the Joe Wright directed one, was on Netflix, so I watched that, and it was excellent. It was really, really good. Really enjoyed it. So I'll be looking forward to going out tonight as well.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. And actually, you'll be proud of me because I have an opera booked for next year, my first ever. I'm going to see Carmen at the Theatre Royal, which I'm very, very excited about because I love the music from that. And so to actually see it live, I'm very excited about. And when I booked it with my colleague who I go to Bardon the Botanics with every year, and as I booked it, I was like, John would be proud of me right now.
Nice. I think I've seen that one maybe about 6. These things tend to come round. Yeah. They tend to do like a couple of big operas a year and a couple of small ones, new ones or whatever. So I think I've seen that one. I'll check. I've got the programs for most of them because we usually get a program for it, So, but yeah, that'll be good. That'll be excellent. Like I say, the music's really good in it. So yes, lovely.
Yeah, and I feel like
Chris to go now.
No, so my colleague Jo and I go to Bardon the Botanics together every year. Obviously, COVID aside, Jo's knowledge of Shakespeare is actually frightening. It's so good. And so I feel like I'm also like watching him watching it as well because it's like I want to know if he thinks it's good. We went to see The Tempest this year and it was such an unusual production because it was very out of sync with how like the usual sort of running order, and it was almost meant to sort of allude to dementia and sort of elderly care and all that sort of thing. And I thought the theme was interesting, but Joe's a purist and was quite upset that it was not in the usual sort of linear narrative. So he's a big opera fan and he doesn't really have anyone to go with, and I was like, well, I would really like to go and see one live. There's no way I'm getting Chris to go and see an opera. The Book of Mormon was about the most musically thing I could get him to go and see.
Good enough, yeah.
So yeah, we've booked to go and see Carmen. Although he did love Book of Mormon, obviously. Chris did. It's how could you not? Yeah, that's, I think, the most musical thing I'll ever get him to go and see, either at the cinema or in a theatre. It's just not his bag at all.
Nice. The Mousetrap is coming next year as well, to the Kings.
Do you know what? I have, like, honestly, for all that I watched that See How They Run, I've never seen The Mousetrap, and I actually don't know how it ends.
No, same. I don't know. I've got no idea. But apparently it's touring next year. Somebody told me this, but I think I knew it already. With The Mousetrap, the film rights of it were sold back just after it started its run. And it was there was a clause in the film rights that it couldn't be made until the show actually stopped performing in the West End. And obviously it's been doing it for years.
It never has. So, yeah, so they touch on that. That's one of the reasons to make somebody a suspect in that See How They Run. Because obviously they do a sort of, it's Adrian Brody's character is this kind of sleazy producer. You've seen it, haven't you?
No, but I've seen the trailers and stuff. So yeah,
so he's the kind of sleazy producer who's trying to get the film up and running, and he's sort of playing the actors off against each other, like saying to Sylvia Sims, like, "Oh, do you know that Grace Kelly's reading for your role?" and stuff like that. You know, he's really trying to amp it all up, and so that's one of the reasons, are the sort of, they set everybody up. Obviously, potentially everybody could be a murderer, you know, in a typical Agatha Christie fashion. So it's really, really well done.
Yeah, because there's obviously that other one, and then there were none.
Yes,
which is which used to be called something a little more controversial, I think it was. But that's the sort of ultimate, because they all drop off one by one in that story.
Did they not do a TV series of that? I think it's Charles Dance and Adrian Turner.
I think so. Yeah. Was that the one that was set in an island or something? They were all in a big kind of house. Yeah. That's right. Yes, that film, Bodies kind of plays off of that same sort of idea.
Oh, I've not seen that. Is that good?
It is. It's really good. It's like, you remember the game Murder in the Dark?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the same sort of idea as that. Somebody's the murderer and they have to basically, you know, murder somebody, but it's all done in fun. But obviously people start dying for real. And it's set during the middle of a big... It's really clever the way they did it, because obviously it's set modern day, but they can't contact anybody outside because there's a massive big storm going on, so all the power's out and phones are out and stuff like that. So you think, so it's a good way of getting around that and still having a modern setting, rather than setting like in 1978 or something like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh no, that does sound pretty cool. That does sound fun. I've seen the trailer, but again, I maybe just missed it. It maybe just wasn't on a long enough run by the time I get back to cinema and stuff, but that does sound cool. Barbarian, that might be a Shudder one, That'll probably come to Shudder or something like that.
It just depends. Shudder tend to do originals rather than buying in stuff. They get stuff in sort of later on, after a couple of years. I think they leave it to the bigger streamers to get these things, and then they just buy them when the license runs out after like 6 months or a year or whatever. Yeah, they've got quite a lot of good stuff, Shudder. It's a lot of interesting wee horror films. I know Simi subscribes to it.
Yeah, no, Chris has a subscription as well, and we've been watching that. Is it Eli Roth's History of Horror? And there's the thing about I can't remember what it's called, but there's also the one where it's like, I don't want to say when movies go wrong, but it looks at things like, you know, Rosemary, like Curses, and like, you know, Rosemary's Baby or The Wizard of Oz, or, you know, all these films where there's maybe like a lot of deaths or mysterious circumstances surrounding them. So I quite like stuff like that. It does always make me wonder though, like, see actors, like obviously going into like a horror film and stuff like that, this is going to make me sound like such a wimp, it's unreal, right? You're obviously on a set, so it's not really dark and you're not really crawling through a tunnel to go and see a monster or something like that. But do some of them not absolutely shit themselves doing this stuff?
Of course they do, yeah. They must do. Because it's the way that it's set up, I think there must be elements of it and you think, they must be getting into it, because like some of these sets will be built in such a way that it's more enclosed and everything like that, but it can be quite stressful, I'd imagine.
Well, I think so, because what I wanted to find out, and I did obviously realise this after the film, is that, again, don't put this in because it's got spoilers, the mother character was obviously a man doing sort of practical, you know, effects, like that sort of thing. So you would actually have been face to face with this like 7 foot like that. I would have absolutely lost my fucking mind.
Oh yeah, I mean, so many actors say it's so much better when you're acting against someone or a physical
As opposed to the tennis ball on the stick.
Yeah, or nothing. Sometimes, there's nothing there. There's some interesting stuff. I watched one of these Marvel Assembled things, and it was to do with She-Hulk. And there was scenes of her and her friend when she was actually in the She-Hulk character, and she's all dotted up with all these things, but she's got a big pole with her the face of She-Hulk about 1.5 feet above her, because She-Hulk's so much taller than she is. Yeah. So she has to act against this, has to look up beyond the normal person, which is quite funny. It's interesting the way they do it, yeah, but it must be so much more gratifying being able to act against something real, a person that actually, because then it's not all totally scripted and things like that. There's a wee bit of leeway for a wee bit of improvisation and almost like genuine horror, like you say, if you're faced with something like that, the mother character, you're going to be repulsed by it no matter what. So aye. It's a good point. Definitely.
I do just wonder about that because I've been watching that thing, and it was a woman. I think her dad was one of the writers in Rosemary's Baby, and obviously there was a lot of I think he died a terrible cancer death and stuff like that, and there was obviously other actors who'd mysteriously disappeared and all this stuff, and I do I'm like, is it if you got a role in and it was your character's going to be part of this massive devil cult or something like that? Is there ever a part of you that goes, maybe I shouldn't dabble with this, even if I am only acting? Do you know what I mean?
Yep. Well, totally. Of course. Yeah, there's things you want to avoid. Let's put it that way. Yeah, totally.
I honestly think you're going to love Western Front.
I think so, yeah. Based on, there's a couple of trailers for it on Netflix, and I've watched them both, and I've obviously read up on some of the reviews, your own review of it as well, obviously. And it looks really good. I like these war films. It's not a typical war film. It's more about the people rather than the situation. Yeah. More, what I mean? It's the people stuck in these situations rather than the battles and the heroes and stuff like that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the book that's one of those books I will always go back to, and I will always feel very, very emotional reading it, and I'm always skeptical when I love a book so much, because for example, Alone in Berlin, which Brendan Gleeson actually was in the movie of that, which is such a terrible adaptation that I was kind of oh, are they really going to do this with Western Front? I'm always really skeptical about these books that are so powerful. Honest to God, I leapt out my skin several times, and the soundtrack, oh my God, it's phenomenal. And I've been listening to it, although the problem is there's 3 really big horn blasts in the soundtrack that every time I have it on my Spotify, I'm like, fuck. So, but it's so well done, and it captures that whole, some of it's a bit on the nose, but it really, really captures this whole disconnect between, fucking men making decisions and these poor boys being used as cannon fodder. So I think you'll really enjoy it though.
Yeah, it's like when they talk about it in Blackadder, when they're talking about a new push, and they say, why does Kitchener want to move his drinks trolley 6 foot closer to Berlin? It's that kind of idea. It's a total disconnect. They're not thinking about the actual people involved.
That's a good line. Yeah. Oh, and do you know the thing is, that's somebody put a clip of that on Twitter the other day of the Blackadder Goes Forth. That still makes me feel really oh, this is supposed to be a comedy. But yeah, this is brutal, and Daniel Bruhl's got a very, very small part in it, but obviously he's sort of there to sort of highlight this nonsense of men in suits, as it were. But it's honestly, I think it might be one of the best war films I've seen in years. That's how good it is.
Nice. Oh well,
even better than 1917 Dunkirk, and that's saying something.
Wow, Jings, big shoes to fill. I've never seen the previous film. It was a US film, wasn't it?
Yeah, they bought the rights. So the thing is, and I touched on this in my review, Universal bought the rights for it because it's published in 1928. They bought the rights for it and made the film and released it in 1931. But then the book was banned, I think, by 1933 or 4 in Germany, obviously, because it's very anti-war. And they didn't want young boys reading it and going, I'm not fucking signing up for an army. So then they remade it again in the 70s, I want to say, but I've not seen that version.
Yeah. Who was in the 30s version? Was it Gary Cooper? No, he was way after that. No, I can't remember.
I don't know if it's anyone. I can't think if there's anyone in it that's... Because I remember looking at it and thinking, I don't think I recognise anyone in the cast. No, I mean, Lou Ayres, Louis Wolheim, John Ray. I'm not recognising any of these names at all.
No.
No. Interestingly, though, I was reading that they were going to do an English language remake, again, obviously before they made it a German production, and they were going to have Travis Fimmel, the guy that plays Ragnar Lothbrok in Vikings, as Cats.
Oh. Right, okay.
Which would have been a quite nice match for that character, but I'm glad it's in German because it should be.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense that it's a German language version because so many films are better in their native language.
Yep.
Definitely, because you get more from it. You definitely do. And it's not the same with people putting on bad German accents.
Oh, they're always honking, aren't they? They really are.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to. It's always, it reminds me of my papa used to watch like old episodes of like Allo Allo. And that's what I think of.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of these things are not a million miles away from the way that, especially in some war films, it's just some of them they don't even try, which is probably better. Like Death of Stalin, for instance, didn't even try to do accents. He just did accent, so.
Yeah, it's so good.
So, yeah.